Hi everyone, welcome back to LTF1. You're here with me, Ishan, and I'm joined by Akshar and Alex plus F1 Star. And today we're going to be talking about the Imola GP. What a race it was. Akshar, do you want to get us started?
I will get us started by telling everyone to subscribe to both our channels, as per. But where do you want to start? What a race! Even
start at the start.
the start of the start before we even got to the grid incident.
I know. It's kind of like Hungary was last year, if you remember. Max Verstappen going off, but this time we had, what was it, Alonso going into the gravel to dink in his little front wing. It was like half wet, half soaking wet on one half of the track and just bone dry on the other.
The mix up tire strategies as well from the teams, with some of them gambling on the wet tire and the intermediate. Obviously, the intermediate looked like it paid off in the end. Gasly struggling into the race. But Ishan, what did you think about the pre-race?
Well, yeah, it was dramatic. I think the whole race was just set out to be chaos today. And yeah, and then before the race as well, there was Vettel as well. It was a brake issue with Vettel, wasn't it?
It was with both Aston Martins. They had a brake-by-wire issue on the rear ends. Stroll was actually on fire, like properly on fire, ruining his cake tins in the rear brake shrouding.
So here we go with the first contentious question of the race review. Do you think it's fair that Vettel got the extra penalty as they didn't have his tyres on? He was already penalised by starting from the pit lane. Did he need the extra stop go?
Yes, because it's not something you can get away. It's one of those like slam dunk penalties, regardless of how much you've already been penalised. Like Perez going past people in the safety car, which I'm sure we'll cover a bit later on as well. It's just one of those safety things after the incident that they recalled back in '81 at Zolder in Belgium, I think it was. Everything's got to be nice, safe. It's a safety issue. Everything has to be done within 5 minutes of the race start on the car, tyres on, etc. If not, it's a fair penalty in my books.
Yeah, to be fair, I totally agree with that. It's just, it's one of those things where you just, I think it's fair, that one, personally.
Yeah, they know what the rules are. Same with the Perez incident behind the first safety car. God knows what he was thinking, or the team was thinking, to let him.
Yeah, why the team let him do that? Yeah, so I'd imagine there would have been that like quick radio communications, like I've gone off. Can I go back past these people? Are they going to let me past? And the team presumably would have said yes, but I haven't heard anything, so it could be completely false. I'm not 100% sure, but Perez should have known.
But especially with how cautious Red Bull were last weekend, having Max give Hamilton the position back.
That's very true. Yeah,
you would have thought they'd get on top of that. That kind of ruined Perez's race in many ways. Not that he had the best of races, anyways.
Then sadly he ruined it again himself afterwards, having a little spin.
So do we think that's like second seat still cursed then?
Good question. Kind of.
We'll jump back to the beginning. Ishan, Latifi. I saw your tweet pop up on my phone. I saw a couple of people liked Mazepin spun Latifi, and then we got the replay, and it looked to be 6-1.
I'll put my hands up and say I was wrong about that, because I initially, from the original camera angle, it looked as if Mazepin had moved towards Latifi, but obviously when you saw it from the proper angle, Latifi was sort of losing the car before he sort of came across and hit Mazepin. So yeah, I was wrong about that, and I corrected myself underneath. It's a non-component here, that's it.
Mazepin managing to finish this race, he went more than 30 seconds into it. But those passes,
they're a dog to drive. They look horrible, absolutely horrible to drive, and so slow. Unfortunately,
they are so far off the pace. Even the Alpines, which are not the greatest of cars this season, are just dropping them.
It's really unfortunate. Especially knowing that they're not going to develop the car like further into the season, like at all, and just focus all of their energy and their finances on 2022. It is really disappointing knowing it's just not going to get better for either driver at all. So it's just going to be a struggle for both of them. And who knows if points are even going to be possible.
It's going to be quite a long and grueling season for their first season.
Mm-hmm.
Especially for Schumacher. Yeah. He's coming off normally dominating and having that limelight and being able to get on the podium from Formula 2. It's a bit like George Russell coming straight into the worst car on the grid. He's gonna prove a lot. Ichin, you're gonna say something?
Yeah, I was just gonna say I can't see them anywhere near points in any race this year, Haas, because, and as you say, they're not developing the car any further. So it's just gonna be miserable. If I can just see it being 19 and 20 every race, personally.
So the first
kind of like the.
Sorry,
go ahead.
Go for it. Go.
Kind of like the Williams was in 2019, the toothpaste Williams with Robert Kubica and George Russell, where it was literally 19th and 20th every single race. Race.
Pretty much, that's what I think. I just can't see it getting any better for them, because they've got two inexperienced drivers, a car that's clearly the worst, and they're not developing their worst car with the least experienced drivers. It's just not a combination that spells points in any way at all.
This is true.
It is one long practice session for them this season, essentially. But onto the lightning starts. Verstappen getting ahead of Hamilton. He was on it with the reaction and with just the getaway. Shot off the line.
It was an absolutely mega start. He actually started in second gear, interestingly, unlike everyone else that would just normally start in first gear, just allowing him to control those early revs and no wheel spin whatsoever, and just straight past Hamilton. It was a beautiful start, the perfect start you could have wanted.
And then Hamilton obviously sort of taking himself out of the equation by going over those, what I think are new rumble strips after the apex, the bombs. I think they would put in for this year, clearly doing their job, but also sort of tearing Hamilton's car to bits.
That's true. We don't know the full extent of the underside damage. We didn't hear any of that on the radio, but we saw visually he lost a small bit on the underside of his end plate on the front wing on the left side. But that's not a super critical section of the part or of the car at all. It doesn't do too much, and especially in those damp conditions, it didn't seem to affect him much, as he did manage to come back at Verstappen when the track was slowly drying up again.
I feel like Verstappen in that section was sort of controlling his pace, though, like we used to see Hamilton doing, just eking it out until someone gets close and then putting his foot down.
Mm-hmm. Just saving the tyres, controlling the pace, and then waiting for his engineers to say people that have pitted behind us on slick tyres are quicker, so we'll come in for slicks, exactly like Verstappen was asking. Just keep me posted on the slick tyre times. If they're getting quicker, we'll come in as well. Exactly the same.
And I love this type of race where we get the crossover, and it's who dares wins, really.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Verstappen and Red Bull did preempt it just a little bit with the transition to slicks, and had Mercedes got the pit stop right, Hamilton might have come out right next to him.
That's true. That's also a good point. Is the Mercedes pit stops? They're not fantastic, are they? They're not brilliant. They're not brilliant pit stops. They can normally get 2.2, 2.4 seconds, but I haven't seen them get these Red Bull pit stops of 1.8 consistently. We haven't really seen a Red Bull mess up pit stop since 2016 Monaco. There may have been a couple after that, not 100% sure, but Mercedes, they've definitely had some bigger blunders and some slightly slower stops.
They dropped the ball last race out as well, didn't they, with Bottas, I think?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And then at the end of last season as well with Sake. So the pit stop is maybe something they need to work on. Definitely something they need to work on. But seeing Verstappen and Hamilton having to work their way through the traffic was nice to watch, because the blue flags weren't like at some other tracks we see cars literally just pulling over to the side, but they couldn't do that.
They weren't really playing ball.
No, they, because of the single dry line, they really had to fight to get through the back markers, which is, I like to see it. And then Russell and Hamilton. Hamilton's fault for me. The commentators
definitely
were mentioning that maybe Russell put him off or made the gap a bit late, but there was no need.
No, there wasn't anywhere for Russell to go. He was already on as far right as he could go. He's already going in slowly into the corner. He's on the white line already. He can't go any further to the right unless he goes off the track. And it was just Hamilton going on the inside, picking up that moisture, coming in too hot. And it was Hamilton's mistake, definitely.
Yeah, I agree with that personally. Because if I'm remembering correctly, because I have bad short-term memory, yeah, it looked as if there was nowhere else that Russell could have really gone. But yeah, definitely Hamilton's mistake there.
And even just before that, tracking back a bit, I can remember in the first few laps, and this is just to do with the TV footage, nothing to do with the racing, but Crofty and Martin Brundle were commentating on a battle between, I think, Gasly and Sainz down the field, and the TV cameras were just on Max Verstappen, who was on his own, doing nothing, circulating, and so we missed a lot of that midfield drama. All we got to see was the timing screens moving about. We didn't really get to see much of the actual action. That's been a problem all weekend for me.
Yeah,
okay,
I remember that. Yeah. Do you want to go first?
No, Bowman's you.
Yeah, because I was going to say, it looked like there was quite a lot of excitement in the midfield, but we missed it because of Sky Sports sort of only one camera angle. So I felt like there was a lot of drama and a lot of action that we sort of missed out on because of that, pretty much.
Alex, you want to
go? It's just, I don't know, the TV cameras, they always try their best with them. I like the fact they've now got the little screen, you know, when they pull it on the timing screen, where we were occasionally watching Perez do a couple overtakes whilst you're watching something on the main screen, and then you've got the little one. That's always nice. But they should try and be a little bit better than rather than just follow the lead car of Verstappen a little bit. But personally, I didn't actually notice what both of you noticed at the start. I may have been looking at my phone at the time, but I didn't see it.
I didn't dare look at my phone through the race very often because I was watching through Sky Go, so I was on about a minute's delay.
No.
So if I looked at my phone, I was saying, "Oh, he's crashed," and then I just didn't want to know about it. Someone's in trouble.
Oh no, trust me, that's me. Sorry, I live on a main road. I get about 20-25 sirens go past me a day. It's a nightmare. And there goes another one.
So I'm sure the folks that live on the side of the Imola track know your pain with the racing cars going by every 5 seconds. Beautiful view they had. But yeah, with Hamilton, for a second I thought he was going to be out of the race, but very smart from him to chuck it in reverse and just reverse his way out the gravel.
And yeah, just keep going backwards as well, rather than going a little bit backwards to then put it into first and try and flick spin it round, because in the gravel that's just not going to work. So to keep it rolling backwards, that's experience. That's experience talking. You don't see a driver of less than 5 years trying to do something like that.
Exactly, and I think. Oh, go on.
Yeah.
Oh,
I was just going to say. For me, it looked like at that point, like he'd reached himself. I don't think he was going to get out of it. I was just about to put my finger on my phone and tweet Hamilton out, but yeah, it looked like he'd reached it. I think a lot of other drivers would have reached it there, to be honest. But yeah, it was clever from Hamilton.
I think, as Verstappen said last year, they pay Hamilton as much money as they do because of his experience and his thought process in these critical moments, and this was a show of that. A bit like Alonso making it back to the pits on 2 wheels a few years ago at Baku.
Oh, in Baku, yeah, 2018, yeah, exactly the same. That
never give up mentality that they've got, because I feel like if that was one of the rookies, he probably would have just got out of the car.
Yeah, definitely. Or they'd have been too heavy on their right foot going backwards or trying to go forwards again, that they would have then beached themselves, and then that would have been it, all done and over.
And obviously, while that was happening, our favorite driver and our most shut-on driver were having a clash on the other side of the track. Ishan, what did you make of it?
It was 50-50 for me, because it kind of was Bottas's fault and it kind of wasn't, because in a way, and I think George Russell tweeted about it earlier after the incident, he was defending his position, which he's obviously entitled to do. But at the same time, as he sort of moved to the right, he didn't leave much room for Russell. And Russell sort of, because of that, may have been a bit too heavy steering to the right. And after that, he's cut a bit of grass, and then the rest is history, pretty much.
Alex,
Yeah, I'll agree. Yeah, we were just a little bit beforehand. I'll agree with that. It's Bottas was in front, taking the natural racing line into the first chicane, so he's naturally going to move to the right, exactly like he was and entitled to do. But Bottas, or Russell even, was just a little bit alongside, getting the right-hand side of his car on the slippy grass, and it was then Russell that lost control, crashing into Bottas. So yeah, 50-50. I don't see there needs to be much investigation in it at all. Maybe a little bit more respect between the two cars at those speeds, but ultimately I think it was 50-50.
For me, while the incident is 50-50, it is 100% Bottas's fault, because he shouldn't have been there in the first place. There was no reason for him to be fighting with Russell over 10th place.
That's true. And actually being overtaken by the Williams, in a position to be overtaken by Williams whilst he's in a Mercedes, struggling in the wet weather once again, like we saw in Turkey last year.
If I'm remembering it right, I think George Russell was actually faster at the time. I believe he was nothing faster at the time. Yeah.
We've said it time and time again through the race reviews and the podcast, and when we've just been talking about F1 news in general, it baffles me still how Bottas is hanging on to his seat. I understand team harmony and everything like that, but Mercedes just need to do what everybody I think sees is clear. I was on a Twitter Spaces room with Sophie Brealey during the week, and the Dirty Air podcast and a few others, and we were just talking about where we could see Bottas going. For me, it's out of the sport. It's rallying or something like that.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Ishan, do you think you can stick around, go back down to Williams, try to rebuild?
No, I think if Williams did offer him a seat, I think because he's been at Mercedes this long, I just think it would be too much of a big sort of step down for him to see it as, because there'll be the ego side of it, because he's been, well, we can't say challenging, but he's been there at the sort of second, third most races. He won't want to be stepping down someone like Williams, with all due respect to them. And I can't see any other team really offering him a place, to be honest, because, yeah, there's a lot of good rookies coming through. There's good drivers in F2 right now. Most teams, I think, are pretty set for the next few years, so I just can't see him. I agree, personally. It'll be out of F1 completely.
I think some people were citing Kimi moving back to Sauber, now Alfa Romeo. But I just think Kimi moved there because he just wanted to keep driving. He enjoys driving. He's not really that bothered. He wants to have fun on a Sunday, right? Bottas is probably still in the mindset of wanting to win something.
To win that world championship. That's still his goal currently. And realistically, in the competitive aspect, this is probably his last chance to do it with the car that he's got under him, as you just have no idea what's going to happen in 22 in next year. You can't put all your eggs into a Mercedes basket or a Red Bull basket or even a Ferrari or McLaren basket for winning a championship. So this year is definitely his last to actually put in some strong performances across a full season to try and take the title fight to Hamilton and to Verstappen.
I would say hopefully he can do it, but I have such little faith in him that I just hopefully we can see him fight more with Russell at the back of the points. At least it'll be interesting.
or maybe with Perez for P3 or P4, they can have good battles between them. So it can be Hamilton and Verstappen up front battling, and then it can be Perez and Bottas having a little battle. Maybe the McLarens getting in the mix, the Ferraris too as well.
Well, the McLarens and the Ferraris today had a great day. Norris and Leclerc, their teammates struggled a little bit. Ricciardo looked like he couldn't quite get on top of the car, and Sainz for a while was all over the place, even though he got it back.
That's true. We've had loads of spins and trips through the gravel as well.
Adventures, as Crofty was calling them.
Little adventures, yeah.
But what do you make of the Sainz Leclerc relationship? Do you think it's going to stay this way, or once Sainz gets on top of that car properly, are we expecting fireworks?
That's a good question. And one that I don't really know the answer to be honest, because I don't know how well their friendship is anyway, outside of them being teammates at Ferrari. I don't know if they're jovial and happy together, etc. So a teammate battle could ruin that, like it did with Nico and Lewis, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I don't know. Leclerc's their sort of golden boy, and even if Sainz does pick up his performances and start challenging him, because I don't know, Ferrari have everything invested in Leclerc. That's what will cause friction, I think, in the future. Is even if Sainz hypothetically started outperforming him, they still wouldn't put the same time and investment into Sainz as they would with Leclerc, because he's essentially their future.
A bit like the last couple of years between Ricciardo and Verstappen, where they were getting along fine and the on-track racing was great, but Ricciardo just felt undervalued.
Yeah, that's what I can see happening, because as I mentioned, Leclerc's their golden boy, Sainz isn't, so he's never going to have the same sort of relationship within the team and the same sort of attention given to him as Leclerc is. So yeah, that's true. Cause issues.
I've also heard Sainz be described as the Ferrari seat warmer for Mick Schumacher coming up in the future. So what's that going to like put on his mind? Does he know that his future is safe at Ferrari through the next couple of years? Does he know that he's going to get biffed out in favour of Mick Schumacher in the coming years at Ferrari? I don't know. Is that going to play on someone's mind?
For me, I'd have to assume that he knew, with the Schumacher name coming back into F1, that accepting a contract with Ferrari had an expiry date on it. There was a clear, as soon as Mick's ready, one of them's
that's it. You're out. We're getting Mick in. Yeah.
Really couldn't see it going any other way other than Mick being a spectacular flop in F1, which I don't expect from him with how he's been going through the junior categories. But onto the Norris-Ricciardo battle. Norris came out saying that in testing, I remember he came out saying that this car is more suited to Ricciardo's driving style, and that even though he'd been at McLaren, it was going to be a long learning period because of the different characteristics of a new chassis and a new engine provider. Are we seeing Norris's quality come out in front of Ricciardo, or is it just that moving to a new team, needing to get settled, that type of thing?
I would say it's a little bit of Ricciardo still getting used to the car, because obviously he's never driven with a Mercedes power unit before, and that's vastly different to any of the other ones. It does make a difference. It's not the same as going from one or the same power unit to the same power unit. Then Norris already comfortable in the car, already comfortable with the team dynamic, and seeming to have just run away with it at the moment so far. But I am expecting Ricciardo to claw some of that back and show that he can improve, like he did in the first couple of seasons when he moved to Renault. Like he wasn't there against Hulkenberg, and then throughout the season, as it progressed further forward, he was putting in the better performances than Hulkenberg at the end. So I do expect him to do the same at McLaren.
Yeah, I agree. I think it'll be, to some extent, Danny Ricciardo getting used to the car over the course of the season. He'll get there eventually because he's a good enough driver to, and it'll start to get close. But with Norris coming out and saying that, I do think some part of that, to some extent, is something drivers sort of like to say to take a bit of pressure off themselves if it doesn't start so well this year. So if he had started the season in like 13th, 14th for the first couple of races, he can go back and say, yeah, but then at the start of the season I did say it's going to take some time. but then if he doesn't, it looks amazing as it has done. So yeah, so I'm not claiming he's lying, but I'm saying that it's a bit of a taking pressure off myself sort of quote.
Yeah, the only reason I was even thinking about it is because they both are putting the car where the car should be, in with the Ferraris, mixing it with Perez, etc. But Norris just seems to be able to get that. It was only
a little bit extra.
It was only a couple of tenths that split them on the lap time that Norris got deleted, but it was a massive difference with how tight the field is, and it's going to be, I think, difficult for Ricciardo to get on top of Norris this season. Agree?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. As I say, I think it'll take a bit of time for Danny Ric to get properly comfortable in the car, and after that, I think it'll be interesting. If the sort of dynamic of the field next year, which I know it's not sort of set to, but if it does stay about the same, then I think next year, hopefully, we should see for definite Danny Ric and Lando as more competitive together. But this year, at least for the first half of this year, I think it'll be Lando ahead of Danny.
Yeah, I can agree with that. And even when he does get back on top of it, I think it's gonna be very much the same as the Norris-Sainz relationship, where they were essentially trying to occupy the same space on track.
Yeah.
But that with the midfield, who we've not really spoken about, Verstappen, great race from him. Exactly the type of race you'd want from someone going for a championship. Cool, calm, collected.
There was that small little incident though, just after the red flag started on the rolling start, where he had that little slide just before on going onto the main straight, and you thought, has he just binned it before the race has even started? Has he gone round? So I think Raikkonen also lost it as well, going round before the race restarted. And you thought, has Verstappen actually just done that? And there was always this thought in my mind that if he's just done it then, we've still got 30 laps to go. He could possibly do that again and end up in the gravel, similar to what happened to him last year in Imola when he got his rear tyre blowout at near the end of the Grand Prix, and that put him out. And I was thinking, could we end up with someone else that's going to win the Grand Prix? Hamilton's way down the order behind Stroll in P8 or P7 at the time. Could we end up with a McLaren or Ferrari taking the victory if Verstappen took himself out? So definitely cool, collected, exactly what you need, exactly what he needed as well.
I completely forgot about that, and at the time I was actually thinking Verstappen slipped and he went off track. Did Norris miss out on an opportunity just to put his foot down a little bit and get in front of him, because Verstappen would have had to let him have that track position? Do you think?
I wouldn't know 100% on the rules of that, because it was the safety car restart. You've got to keep the order, but I suppose if Verstappen was completely and utterly off the track, then maybe Norris could have gone past. I don't know 100% of the procedures and the rules, because it comes back to the Perez incident. Once you leave the track, are you then entitled to be overtaken? I don't 100% know. That's something for the people that bury their heads in rule books to look for.
Well, I'm sure someone in the comments may have buried their head in the rule book and will probably know there. But yeah, a great race. We were a little bit robbed of seeing Verstappen and Hamilton just go at it, dry tack, equal tires.
Mm-hmm.
But there's always next weekend.
There's still 21 races left this year. We've got plenty more to look forward to. Plenty more.
We've got plenty of races and no more absurd gaps between races. So I guess the season's really underway from now. Ishan, looking forward to it.
Yeah, for definite. And yeah.
Well, on that, I guess on Ishan just breaking. I
was about to say something, and then my mind, I had a complete mind blank or something, and completely forgot what I was going to say. So
it's alright.
I'm like a pro.
They used to it.
It happened in our last video.
It happens in every video, Ishan. We just didn't give you the pleasure of being edited out last video. That's all. Go on, outro is in.
Okay. So, thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for joining us, Alex.
That's okay. Pleasure.
Be sure to subscribe to his channel. We'll leave it in the description below. And yeah, hopefully you enjoyed. Give us a like, give us a sub, and you can find us on Twitter at LTF1 Official and Instagram at LTF1 Official. Alex, do you want to drop your
Can't even outro it properly. You should. Come on. But you know that's staying in, so don't worry about it. We'll leave it there.
It's been a long day.
It was a good race.